The crystal chandeliers glowed like stars, spilling golden light across the Grand Metropolitan Hotel's ballroom, where Chicago's wealthiest and most powerful had gathered for the annual Children's Foundation Charity Gala. Laughter and polished conversations floated through the air, mingling with the soft notes of the string quartet. Months of planning had built to this night, million-dollar auction pieces, towering floral displays, and promises of life-changing donations for students across the city. Near the auction tables, Margaret Thornton smoothed the fabric of her black evening gown, her movements graceful and practiced, the movements of a woman used to orchestrating perfection. At 45, she wasn't just a respected name, she was a force. Thornton Industries had become one of the Midwest's most influential tech empires under her leadership. Yet tonight, her business success was merely the backdrop to what mattered most: her daughter. 16-year-old Isabella stood beside her, elegant in a navy blue dress that framed her soft brown hair, pinned neatly in an updo that made her look older than she felt. From afar, she seemed like the perfect daughter of privilege, poised, polished, born into elegance. But a closer glance revealed something others rarely noticed: the quiet watchfulness in her eyes, the way she subtly angled herself so her back rested against a wall, giving her a clear view of the room. Isabella had been deaf since birth, and no matter how beautiful her dress was, no matter how warm the lighting felt, these rooms always made her feel like she was standing outside a world built for others. She could read lips well, but words blended together, faces shifted too fast, and every conversation reminded her that silence could feel louder than sound. Her mother had tried. Private tutors, the best specialists, the most advanced hearing devices. Margaret bought solutions the world promised, but the world had delivered something else: isolation behind polished smiles. What Margaret never fully grasped was that inclusion wasn't bought, it was built. And very few in their circle ever tried to learn Isabella's language. As donors lifted champagne flutes and whispered about stock markets and philanthropy, Isabella endured well-meaning smiles and conversations directed at her mother rather than her. When someone did finally acknowledge her, they spoke loudly, slowly, with exaggerated lips, like she was fragile, like she was a problem to navigate. They didn't realize she spoke with her hands, with her expressions, with the language of movement and meaning, American Sign Language. The auctioneer announced another donation. Applause rose, and Isabella felt the familiar tightness in her chest. After an especially awkward exchange with a board member who kept asking Margaret, never Isabella, if she could hear anything at all, she murmured a quiet excuse and slipped away. She headed toward the service corridor, seeking the one thing this sparkling ballroom couldn't offer her: peace. She needed space, away from voices she couldn't keep up with, away from eyes that saw only what they expected. And just as the music and chatter faded behind her and the hallway grew still, that's when she encountered Miguel Santos, who was quietly refilling water glasses near the auction tables. At 38, Miguel wasn't dressed in a tux like the guests, just a neat blue work shirt, sleeves rolled up, moving with the steady, unnoticed rhythm of hotel staff. He blended into the background the way people in uniforms often do in places built for the wealthy. But when he lifted his head and saw the tight frustration in Isabella's eyes, he paused. Really paused, and something gentle flickered across his face. "Are you okay?" he asked. But the words didn't come from his mouth. His hands moved, smooth, fluent, warm, American Sign Language. Isabella froze, her breath catching. Then her eyes widened, shock first, then something like gratitude. Relief washed over her expression so quickly it made Miguel soften even more. For the first time that evening, someone wasn't forcing her to translate the world. Someone had stepped into hers. "You know sign language?" She signed quickly, energy sparking through her fingertips, excitement lighting her features. Miguel smiled, a small, sincere curve of his mouth. "My little brother is deaf," he signed back. "I learned when he was young. 20 years now. I saw your face and, well, I wondered if anyone here was actually talking with you instead of about you." His hands moved with confidence and kindness. Not pity, not curiosity, respect, understanding. Isabella blinked fast, tears threatening to spill. How strange, she thought, that a room full of brilliant, successful people could overlook her completely, yet a quiet worker saw her instantly. A maintenance man understood what millionaires couldn't. "Most people here don't sign," Isabella explained. "They love my mom. They praise her, but me? They either talk over me or treat me like some inspirational statue, like I exist just to prove something." Miguel nodded, expression thoughtful. "People don't know how to handle disability, so they pretend it isn't there. Or they make it all they see. Neither one lets you be a person." His honesty loosened something in her chest. The noise of the gala felt far away now. For the first time that night, Isabella wasn't shrinking into herself. She was breathing. They kept signing, and Miguel didn't glance around the room once. He didn't check how he looked or who might see him talking to her. He simply asked about her world, her interests, her school, what she thought of the charity that claimed to be for children, yet hardly understood what inclusion meant. She realized, with a small ache in her heart, that no one at the gala had asked her anything real all night. Then Miguel signed, "What do you want to do after high school?" His curiosity was sincere. He wasn't humoring her. He wanted to know. Isabella's hands moved with sudden fire. Engineering. Just like my mom. Her eyes shined, not with the polite smile she showed guests, but with genuine excitement, hope, possibility. Specifically, Isabella signed with determined hands, "I want to create better communication technology for deaf and hard-of-hearing people. There are so many ways the world could be more accessible, so many tools we should have. But most hearing engineers don't understand what we actually need." Miguel's expression shifted. Respect, admiration, and something like pride softening his features. "That sounds incredibly important," he signed. "The world needs engineers who truly understand accessibility. You could change lives." Before Isabella could respond, footsteps echoed down the corridor. Margaret appeared, elegant and composed, but worry hiding in her eyes. She had noticed Isabella's absence. "There you are," Margaret said, relief in her voice. Then she stopped when she noticed Miguel. Her posture straightened slightly, the practiced grace of someone crossing an invisible social boundary. "Is everything all right here?" Miguel instinctively stepped back, hands folding in front of him. He knew where he stood in this world, behind the scenes, unnoticed, replaceable, but Isabella wouldn't allow that moment to define him. "Mom, this is Miguel." She signed and spoke aloud at the same time, voice soft but firm. "He actually talked with me. In ASL, it's the first real conversation I've had all night." Margaret's eyes flicked to Miguel, curiosity replacing polite distance. For a second, her polished social mask slipped as she processed what that meant. This hotel worker had given Isabella something priceless: connection. "You know sign language?" she asked, her tone shifting, respect creeping into her voice. "Yes, ma'am," Miguel answered, calm and humble. "My younger brother is deaf. Our whole family learned ASL. I was just telling Isabella her goals are, well, impressive." Margaret blinked, emotions tumbling across her face. Gratitude, shame, realization. A ballroom full of powerful, educated donors. Yet none had done what this quiet man had. "Miguel," she began carefully, her voice thoughtful now, "I have a question for you. Isabella struggles in social settings. She's bright, but she feels excluded, isolated. Would you consider helping her build confidence? Maybe teaching her peers some basic sign language? Miguel looked stunned. Mrs. Thornton, I'm honored, truly. But I'm not a tutor. I'm just someone who grew up signing. I wouldn't want to promise something I'm not trained to do. Before he could step away, Isabella leaned forward, signing fast, passion spilling from her hands while she spoke for her mother's benefit. Miguel, in 20 minutes, you've made me feel seen and understood more than most people do in 20 days. You don't need a degree to teach kindness or real communication. You already did. Margaret watched her daughter, really watched her, in a way she hadn't in a long time, and suddenly, she understood. Isabella didn't need more expensive programs, new devices, or polished charity gala compliments. She needed people. People who tried. People who listened. People like Miguel. But simply people willing to stand beside her, speak her language, and meet her where she already was. Inclusion wasn't about money. It was about humanity. Margaret exhaled slowly, a decision forming in her eyes. Miguel, she began, her tone shifting from polite curiosity to genuine intention. What if we think bigger? Thornton Industries has been exploring ways to strengthen our accessibility efforts. What if I brought you on as a consultant, someone who can guide us in making our workplace and events truly inclusive for deaf and hard-of-hearing employees and guests? Miguel blinked, stunned. A job offer? From Margaret Thornton? He looked almost afraid to breathe. Mrs. Thornton, I don't have business credentials. I've never worked in accessibility professionally. Margaret shook her head firmly. Miguel, you have something money and training can't buy. You have lived experience. You understand the culture, the challenges, and the connection. You know how to help hearing people communicate respectfully instead of just pretending they understand. Isabella's face lit up, genuine excitement bubbling in her expression, a spark that hadn't been there earlier in the evening. Yes, Miguel, she signed passionately. This could change everything. You could build programs that actually serve deaf people, not programs that make hearing people feel good about pretending they helped. And in that quiet, polished hallway, something shifted. A hotel worker suddenly had the power to shape futures. A CEO finally saw what real inclusion meant. And a young girl felt the world open just a little wider. 6 months later, Miguel Santos was no longer wearing a blue hotel shirt. He now walked the halls of Thornton Industries as the Director of Accessibility and Inclusion, his name printed on a polished office door. The consultant no one expected had become the leader everyone needed. He launched ASL classes for staff, built sign-inclusive communication systems, and transformed company events into environments where deaf individuals didn't just attend, they belonged. Companies across the region began adopting Thornton's new model, inspired by Miguel's vision. And Isabella? She had found her voice, not through sound but through purpose. Working beside Miguel, she built a peer mentoring network connecting deaf teens with adults who understood their journey and could offer real support, guidance, and hope. What began as a quiet moment in a hotel service hallway had grown into something powerful, an unexpected partnership between a billionaire's daughter and a man many once walked past without noticing. And that partnership sent ripples far beyond the walls of Thornton Industries. Miguel's brother soon joined the company as a junior developer, and for the first time in his life, he worked in a place where his language wasn't treated as a barrier, but as a strength. Several other deaf professionals followed, recruited not as charity gestures, but as innovators with perspectives the company desperately needed. A year later, the Grand Metropolitan Hotel hosted the charity gala again, this time transformed. Large screens displayed ASL interpreters. Visual announcements lit up elegantly across the ballroom. Conversation cards encouraged hearing guests to greet deaf attendees in sign. Instead of polite smiles and awkward pity, there was laughter, connection, genuine curiosity. Isabella stood at the podium as the evening's youth speaker, Miguel beside her signing smoothly, their teamwork practiced and natural. She looked poised, confident, no longer pressed against a wall searching for safety, but standing in the center of the room, shaping it. "Last year," Isabella began, voice steady and warm as Miguel's hands echoed her meaning, "I felt invisible in this room, even though I was surrounded by people. I had technology, I had hearing devices, I had the best programs money could buy, but none of it mattered. Because what I didn't have was connection." She glanced toward Miguel with a grateful smile. The change didn't begin with expensive equipment or complex programs. It began with one person who chose to speak with me in my language. One person who didn't try to fix me, but chose to meet me where I was. The audience was silent, not uncomfortable silence, but the kind that listens. Deaf guests sat proudly at tables alongside hearing ones. Interpreters moved fluidly at the edges of the room. This time, everyone belonged. Real inclusion, Isabella continued, happens when we stop trying to help people by making them more like us, and instead build bridges so we can all stand together. It happens when a janitor teaches a CEO what accessibility really means, and when a teenager's frustration becomes the spark for real, lasting change. Margaret watched from her seat, emotion tightening her throat. She had spent millions on programs meant to help her daughter, yet nothing compared to the impact of one honest conversation in a service corridor. That moment when someone saw Isabella not as an inspiration or a challenge, but as a whole person. Months later, the hotel created a permanent display about deaf culture and sign language, curated by Miguel and Isabella. It sat not in a hallway, but in the lobby, visible to everyone who entered. A reminder that life-changing conversations don't always happen on marble stages or under crystal chandeliers. Sometimes they begin in quiet corners between two people willing to truly see each other. The billionaire's daughter learned that being heard had nothing to do with sound. It had everything to do with being understood. And the janitor discovered that the experiences he once thought ordinary could help transform entire communities and systems. Thank you for listening to this story. A story about connection, courage, and the power of learning someone's language, whether spoken, signed, or simply felt. If it moved you, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in true accessibility, and subscribe for more stories that build bridges, not walls. And we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever felt truly seen by someone who took the time to communicate in your way? Or learned something life-changing from someone whose world was different from your own? Tell us in the comments. Remember, inclusion isn't about fixing people. It's about creating a world where every voice, spoken or signed, can be heard, honored, and understood.